with the Kentucky Department of Education, Part B 619 Coordinator with the Division of IDEA and Preschool, Office of Special Education and Early Learning. Today, I'm going to present to you the Child Outcome Summary COS Process webcast. Our objective for today's meeting will be to inform Regional Training Center directors, preschool coordinators, directors of special education, and practitioners on the 3 preschool outcomes and the new Indicator 7 data collection process. State Performance Plan and Annual Performance Report. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, requires states to submit a state performance plan and to annually report annual performance report on the status toward meeting the targets on the indicators contained in this plan. The SPP's APRs include indicators designed to measure effective special education programming. Indicators are either results-focused or compliance-focused. Results indicators have annual targets. Compliance indicators have specified targets of either 0% or 100%. For the purpose of this presentation, we will focus on the preschool indicators, specifically Indicator 7. These are the 3 preschool indicators specific to state-funded preschool programs. Indicator 6 involves preschool environments. Indicator 7 is preschool outcomes. Indicator 12 is early childhood transitions. Indicator 12 is a compliance indicator, and Indicator 6 and 7 are results indicators. Indicator 7 preschool outcome. Indicator 7 is the percent of children ages 3 to 5 with IEPs with improved A, positive social emotional skills, B, acquisition and use of knowledge and skills, and C, use of appropriate behaviors to meet their needs. The Child Outcome Summary process is a way for states to measure the progress of preschool students receiving IEP services. The process takes a before and after score of the child's functional skills compared to typically developing peers. Scores are based on evidence of the child's functional skills across these 3 outcome areas mentioned within Indicator 7. The Child Outcome Summary process summarizes information on a child's function in each of the 3 child outcome areas. We have talked about using a 7-point scale. With the COS process, a team of individuals who are familiar with a child, this could be parents, teachers, paraeducators, related service providers, etc., can consider multiple sources of information about his or her functioning, including parent-provider observation and results from direct assessment. Anyone who works with a child can support the rating. The big idea for our districts to understand is that the COS is not an assessment tool. It is a method of gathering information of a child's functioning across settings and situations. It uses information from multiple sources to describe how a child is functioning and relies on a team-based discussion and decision-making. The process produces a rating for each of the 3 child outcomes. So who will receive a rating and how? A rating will be given to all preschool children enrolled upon initial entry into the state-funded preschool program, at interim checkpoints, and at the exit of the state-funded preschool program. Head Start students with an IEP placed in blended classrooms within the local education agency, Head Start students enrolled in Head Start centers outside of the LEA. Local school districts should designate a process for completing the rating, and COS rating discussions can be held face-to-face, virtually, or parent-teacher, or by phone conference, home visits, ARC meetings, or other similar method at the district's discretion, providing the format of the discussion allows for full participation for all teams. So why have we decided to collect a rating on all students? We had done this in Kentucky for many reasons. Ongoing authentic assessment is the hallmark of a quality early childhood program. Requiring the collection of data grounded in authentic assessment at identified checkpoints promotes ongoing assessment. Supporting instructional teams and families to review and more thoroughly understand a child's development status at identified checkpoints leads to the use of instructional strategies that can be more effectively addressing emergent development over time. Required reporting to OSEP at designated checkpoints will reduce the likelihood of missing data for highly mobile families. If a child exits unexpectedly, the most recent data will serve as the child's exit rating. The data beyond entrance and exit can be used effectively by local program leaders to monitor the quality of their programs. Kentucky preschool programs place great importance on least restrictive environment, which is the inclusive early childhood classroom. Therefore, most preschool classrooms have a high percentage of students with IEPs that the outcomes must be reported on. The cause process also leads to discussion that helps teams consider a child's functional use of skills relative to age expected, so teams can consider services and supports to help the child function most effectively in the general education LRE environment. So when will we rate? We will rate all children at initial entry to the preschool program. We will rate children at the establishment of an IEP, even if it is after initial entry of program. We will rate children who transition from Part C, first steps. We will do interim ratings, and then we will complete a rating at the final exit of the preschool program. So all children, including Head Start students with IEPs and students who receive related services only, will receive an initial program entry rating. If at some point a child enters the program without an IEP, but an IEP is implemented after a checkpoint has closed, the practitioner will need to develop a rating that includes the most recent data used to determine eligibility for special education services. This becomes the official entry program rating. For children whose programs suspect that children will have an IEP implemented at a later time, it may be beneficial to hold off on rating those children closer to the closing of the current rating window to develop a functional rating. All initial entry preschool program ratings need to be completed within 6 weeks, 30 school days of the start date. For children transitioning from Part C, first steps, it is important to know that Part C will remain with the Kentucky Early Childhood Data System known as KEDS. Therefore, transitioning children will not have a cost rating created by First Steps practitioners. It will be the responsibility of the LEA to complete an initial program entry rating within 6 weeks, 30 school days of the preschool start date. It may be beneficial to include First Step providers in determining a cost rating during transition meetings. Any available rating can include Part C data for the initial rating. The interim rating will be conducted after the initial program entry rating is given each successive spring and fall that a child is enrolled in preschool, including Head Start students with an IEP and students who receive related services only. All should receive an interim checkpoint rating. Winter is an optional checkpoint unless a child enters or exits within the winter timeframe or if an IEP is initiated or closed during this time. Final exit of the preschool program rating will be given to all children when they exit the preschool program, including Head Start students with an IEP and children who receive related services only. This means those returning students will not have an exit score until they completely exit the program. All scores between entry and exit would be interim, whether it's 1, 2, or 3 years, only having a final exit as they move on to kindergarten. Next slide, please. Here we've provided a flow chart for initial entry, interim, and final exit for child outcome measurement. Costs must be submitted for all children at the program entry, interim, and program exit, like we discussed previously. All documents moving forward in this presentation will be viewed in their entirety in the Kentucky Child Outcomes Summary, the COS, process guidance document set to be released by the KDE in the near future. Again, this is a reminder that children who have an IEP established after the initial program entry point has closed, a new rating will need to be developed based on the most recent data to develop a score that closely represents the child's level of functioning at that time. This new rating does become the official program entry rating. Next slide, please. Here's our preschool data timeline. Our fall window is September 15th through November 15th. This is all enrolled students with and without IEPs. They will need to be assessed within this window. Teams will work together to assign the ratings. The winter data window will be December 1 through January 31. Only late enrolling students or students who fall within this window who have a new IEP established will need to be assessed and assigned a rating. The spring data window, April 1 through May 31st. Again, all enrolled students with and without an IEP need to be assessed, and the team will work together to assign the rating. The due dates for the Kentucky Child Outcome Summary electronic data form will line up with the continuous assessment windows. Those are not set by the Kentucky Department of Education. The KDE will confirm for preschool coordinators the established assessment window each year. Next slide. So now let's talk briefly about some of the very first steps that we need to look at before beginning the child outcome process. It's very important for practitioners to understand the content and the context of the 3 childhood outcomes, to understand age expected development and age expectations for child functioning within a family's culture, to know about the child's functioning across multiple settings and situations, to identify potential team members early on and prepare them for their participation, to gather additional sources of information that will aid in the development of the rating, and to have a good understanding of how to use the 7-point rating scale and additional informational tools in order to determine a rating. In addition to these steps, it is critical for practitioners to understand the procedures and expectations of their district to ensure both timely and accurate data. Moving on to the 7-point scale example and the progress question. The 7-point scale assigns a numerical rating to demonstrate to the extent a child shows age expected functioning across a variety of settings and situations for each of the 3 outcomes, and can be used to describe the functioning of children with a whole wide range of abilities, including those with mild developmental delays and those with significant disabilities or regressive disorders. Definitions for each of the ratings are always included for reference. The progress question is a yes or no question about any individual student's progress compared to what the child was doing on or before program entry. So to rate students using the 7-point scale, 1 represents not met, 2 is less than emergent, 3 is emergent, 4 is less than somewhat, 5 is somewhat, 6 is less than completely, and 7 is completely. Next slide, please. Included in the guidance document will be this collaborative form and intended to initiate conversations with families to provide insight into their child's current level of functioning regarding the 3 child progress categories. This form can be printed off by early childhood staff and presented at meeting opportunities, including IEP meetings, open house, home visits, parent-teacher conferences, etc., to be referenced during the COS team rating discussion. Please note that this is a sample form that includes demographic information, including the child's name, the caregiver name, teacher's name, and student state identifier number, or the SSID. It has the checkpoints for initial program entry, interim, and final program exit. It has family-friendly definitions for the 1 to 7 outcome ratings. It has the indicator 7 outcome questions with parent-friendly related skills and the progress questions. This form is a sample form. Districts have the flexibility to create their own as long as the pertinent information is included. Next slide, please. The teacher data collection form includes the same information as the sample parent interview form, in addition to a section to indicate individuals providing input, approved continuous assessment, other sources of evidence, and a section for support and evidence that is intended to be printed for use by early childhood staff, including related service providers for reference during COS team meeting rating discussions. This form shall be filed in the child's cumulative folder upon completion as a source of evidence and to support children who may move districts. The information gleaned from this form should be used in conjunction with other sources of data to develop a rating for students. Again, this is a sample teacher data collection form. Districts have the flexibility to develop their own as long as all of the content included in the sample one is included. Next slide, please. Within Infinite Campus is where we're going to store the final product. The Kentucky Child Outcome Summary data collection process in Infinite Campus will look like this. Districts will log in to Infinite Campus, District Edition. First, you will need to verify your year and school, making sure they are correct at the top banner. Any district who is unable to access IC will need to check with the district administrators to get the appropriate rights. Once you have verified the year and the school is correct, you will move on to the forms. Next slide, please. First, you will click on Search on the left-hand side of the screen, and then you will click on a student's name. Then you will click on Forms in the tab, and then you will scroll down to New and click New. Please note, if you do not see these forms when you look in Infinite Campus, you will need to contact your district administrator for rights. Next slide, please. Moving from the New tab will take you into the Select Form tab. Under Select Form, you will find Module. Scroll down to the Preschool module. Once you find the Preschool module, you will click on the Kentucky Child Outcome Summary form. This will generate the form for completion. If at any point you are not able to see this form, again, you will need to reach out to your district level Infinite Campus administrator to be granted rights. The KDE does not have the ability to grant rights to the form, nor do they have the ability to see if all districts have accessibility. It's only those districts who have granted rights to the KDE that we are able to view their forms. Next slide, please. This is the electronic data collection form. It's intended to provide information on the child's current level of functioning along with demographic information. Please note the enrollment date is the first day students show up to the preschool program for services. It will not be the summer application date. It is the first day for students in the actual preschool program. From there, you will go to checkpoints. You will see initial program entry, interim checkpoint, and final exit program checkpoint. Next slide, please. From there, you would look at your ratings for each student. For outcome 1, positive social emotional skills, including social relationships. 1A, to what extent does this student show age expected functioning across a variety of settings and situations on this outcome? You will complete this at all established checkpoints. The rate and drop-down box will be 1, not yet, 2, less than emerging, 3, emerging, 4, less than somewhat, 5, somewhat, 6, less than completely, and 7, completely. From there, you will have the opportunity to include your support and evidence of age-appropriate functioning. You will be able to document concerns. You will be able to document immediate foundational skills and functioning that is not age-appropriate, and you will be able to document functioning that is not yet age-appropriate or immediate foundational. After you complete this section of the document, you will hit Save. You will create a new form for your next rating. This is a progress question. It will also be included on all forms. You will answer each time a rating is given except for at the initial rating. Some important timelines that the KDE Early Learning Team will be available for technical assistance. August 1 through November 15, we will provide assistance. November 16th through December 1, we will pull the data from IC. December 1 through January 31, we will again provide technical assistance. February 1 through 15th, we will pull from IC. 15th through May 31st, we will again provide TA. From May 31st to June 15th, we will pull again from Infinite Campus. And then on June 30th, the final district data report for preschool outcomes will be made available. As you move forward with the Child Outcome Summary process, here are some additional resources. The Kentucky Regional Early Childhood Training Centers, the Early Childhood Technical Assistant ECTA Center, the Center for IDEA Early Childhood Data Systems known as DAISY, the Kentucky Child Outcomes Summary Guidance Document with sample data collection forms, the Early Childhood Outcomes Center ECO Continuous Assessment Crosswalks allow practitioners to establish the relationship between a skill on the continuous assessment tool and the outcomes. Aside from Kentucky, 40 states and territories currently use the COS system, so this allows for networking to be made easy. Any questions that you have about the COS, please send to Jennifer Riley at education.ky.gov, Andrea Bartholomew at education.ky.gov, or Amy Patterson at education.ky.gov regarding the data in Infinite Campus. Thank you for your time today. We look forward to working with you on the Child Outcome Summary process.